You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. Hello one, hello all. Welcome to the podcast in which we obsess over the details in punk, hardcore, indie rock, emo, metal, the people who are creating it, who are documenting it, who are releasing it. It's all very important to us, and that's why I want to have these conversations with those people, because I care about this. The older I get, the more I care about this, and it's my privilege and honor to bring you these conversations. And this week, of course, is no exception. I've hunted this person down for years, like just messaging random accounts and talking to friends that have literally released this band's music to be like, hey, can you hook me up with them? And they do, and then the line goes cold, and these things happen. People get busy. But I am thrilled to welcome Scott Angelacos from Bloodlet, and he plays in a band called Hollow Leg right now. Incredible stoner rock stuff. But Scott also played in a band called Hope and Suicide. And but Bloodlet was my entry point to who he was as a human, or is as a human. And Bloodlet is such an interesting band for a multitude of reasons. One, they did not make sense on the Victory Records roster in the mid-90s, as all of your Earth Crises and Snapcases and Strifes were exploding, and this label was becoming a household name for anybody that was getting into hardcore at that time. Bloodlet was always the weird band out. And I was compelled by that because I was like, there's something interesting about this. The band had some very particular and interesting time signatures, so it personally opened my brain up in different ways to be able to interact with this sort of musicianship. It didn't need to be like the typical 4/4, 6/8 time or whatever. It was just like all over the place, which was really engaging for me. And then also the aesthetic of Bloodlet, whether it was the artwork they were putting out there. I would never forget getting the Seraphim Fall and just being like, what is this? Like, I don't really understand like what this art is portraying. Like the lyrics are sort of esoteric, but it's incredibly compelling. I got a chance to see them a couple of times. They played the Showcase Theater here in Southern California, and I just always admired the band and thought they were really, really cool. And that's why I wanted to have Scott on. And he was incredibly gracious with his time, dug in, went down memory lane, but then also talked about why this music is still so important to him and why he's attracted to it. So he also tells some fun stories about Tony Victory and that whole era of the band. So you, as the consumer, you want to reach out to the show? 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. I love to receive any and all feedback, whether it's guest ideas or whatever's on your brain. Love to receive that. Also, I do this for free week over week, and I don't ask anything of you besides a simple thing to support the show, which would be leaving a rating and review on the Apple Podcast page, or simply a rating on the Spotify page if you listen to it there. You can also follow along. There's a link in the show notes to this show on YouTube. I don't do this on video. I have no plans on doing video. It's just not the road that I'm going down, even though obviously people are doing that left and right in the podcast space, and that's totally fine for them. Not for me. There's an intimacy in audio that I really feel strongly about, and kind of containing that, because people definitely feel self-conscious on video. I don't care whether it's something that they're very used to or something that they do often. There's something intimate about just sitting there and discussing and talking and looking a person in the eye and knowing that there isn't a camera recording them. Anyways, I digress, but you can follow along on YouTube because that's the way that people consume podcasts, and that's totally fine. So link in the show notes. You'll be able to find that page and listen to it if you want to in that fashion. I also do a weekly recommendation playlist. You can find a link in the show notes for Apple Music or Spotify, whatever your preferred streaming platform is. And this week this record had me in an absolute stranglehold in 2007, 2008, roughly when it came out. This band, and every time I revisit this record, I'm reminded why I like it so much. So the band is called Editors from the UK. The record is called End Has a Start, and this is definitely post, Interpol becoming like the biggest band ever for many years, and definitely did not exist in the, meet me in the bathroom, indie sleaze scene. This was a little more, I guess, poppier, maybe like Depeche Mode influence, but definitely not as 80s. But if you like that sort of aesthetic and dark pop, I guess we'll call it, maybe a little post-punk, but definitely not in the same way as like Interpol was. Editors was so good. I got a chance to see them on this record as well. I remember they played the House of Blues Anaheim. I think a friend of mine was working at the door, and she texted me being like, "Hey, you like this band? They're playing here and I have a free ticket." I was like, "Oh my gosh." It was probably an hour before they played. I dropped everything, went to go see them, and was totally enamored. They put out a record before this, totally blanking on the name, but that's also really good. They put out, I think, 3 more records after this. It didn't hit me as hard. It was still good. It just didn't have that same sort of urgency that I felt like this record did. But yeah, you need to check this record out. If you are a fan of any of those things that I mentioned, it's just so catchy and brilliant. Great lyrics. Love what they're doing. So check that out. And you can also dive into that playlist and hopefully get another piece of music that will grab onto you in the way that this editor's record did back in 2007 and still does in 2025. It's great. So yeah, now let's talk to Scott from Bloodlet. And actually, before I do that, let's talk about Iceland, because I was in Iceland this past week. And what was so interesting, not only because the country is beautiful and amazing and truly a one-of-one experience if you ever have a chance to go there, but I was really impressed with the musical history. Everyone is generally aware of, Bjork and Sigur Rós and, Sugar Cubes. And then if you're into like the modern composer sort of subset of music, Ulfur Arnalds, I think is his name. I love his stuff, and I've never said his name out loud to anybody until I'm saying it to you right now. But has a rich musical history. And they have a band like Minus, who was on Victory Records as well, that put out a couple of records, but did not really break from a mainstream perspective. But the reason I bring all that up is because the pride that the country has in their own musicians and musicianship and record labels and record stores, there is so much going on there. And it was incredibly cool to see because, Reykjavik, the capital town, probably has like 6 or 7 record stores. And for a population of, I don't know how many, but, it's an island, so it's small. It was so plentiful, and it was really, really heartening and cool to see how vibrant that music scene is, which wasn't a surprise to me, but it was, I guess, more revealing when I was confronted with it. And they also have a really, really cool punk museum that's like literally in an old public restroom. It's really cool because there was so much going on as punk was starting to take over the world. It did not leave Iceland alone, and it was very motivated by that. And, that birthed so many different things in that particular country. Bjork is definitely punk-inspired, and that's a cool thing to see. So anyways, I digress, but you had to know. If you ever need a recommendation about Iceland, just hit me up, or obviously hit up many of your friends that may or may not have gone. If they haven't gone, then don't listen to recommendations. But anyways, let's talk to Scott from Bloodlet right now. I will take you back to the year of our Lord, 1997, in which I watched you at Showcase Theater in Corona, California, play with Vision of Disorder.
All right.
And so the reason I'm bringing that up in particular is because, so at that time, my hardcore wings were just spreading. Like I started to obviously understand, where kind of bands were located and like record labels, all that rabbit hole stuff we all go down. And I was already a fan of what you guys were doing. And then watching you get up there, I was just like, these guys look like they're weird, man. Like they're not from this planet. In like,
man, Florida is not this planet.
And I appreciate you saying that, because it definitely felt like, and then once I became more enamored with you guys and truthfully like followed along your entire career, I was like, oh yeah, like my initial instinct of you guys not existing in any sort of structure where it's like, yeah, I guess we're a hardcore band, but we're not really, but like, yeah. So it's a convoluted way of me asking where it was like, I'm guessing that that project in particular, and frankly, most of the projects that you have done, have you ever really like, I guess, felt at home, so to speak, like sonically, or was it just like, we'll kind of show up wherever and do our thing?
Yeah. It's funny. We like, when people want to put a label on something, and that's fine. We'll exist wherever we wanted to exist, wherever we could fit in or not fit in. Actually, we wanted to be the opposite of fitting in. We just wanted to be ourselves, and we wanted to do something that was actually annoying. We go ahead and try and dance to this, kids. Like that kind of thing when we first started out. So we definitely wanted to be different. We didn't want to be like anything else. So then I guess when I never felt comfortable with any kind of labels. And so anything we could go jump on, whether it's a metal show or a hardcore show, a punk show, we were fine with doing whatever, as long as you didn't throw any shit on us.
Right. Right. And I think that through line of what you're talking about, where you guys were putting whatever you could into your songs to make it challenging, thought-provoking, or whatever, it definitely read to me as like, okay, we are, whether it's our intention to push your own musical boundaries, hardcore kid or whatever, like it seemed like there was always like, you guys were always trying to bring people along to, kind of a new sound or a new ecosystem, so to speak, and not just be like, oh, if you want Ethnogen 2.0, you're not going to get it.
That was, I made possibly to our own detriment, like, I think it's funny, we definitely did that for sure. And we're not going to sound like one thing the whole way through. We were always changing it, influenced by what we were listening to at the time and what we were interested in playing, So yeah, that was never a thing with Bloodlet. After that, it was funny. I think after that, I was like, you know what, we should have, we're going to have sounds, like we should have a, like kind of like a formula. Like I like what, what I love about Slayer is that they sound like Slayer, like they don't change from that formula. Like I got mad when Metallica started to change, like, so I thought as a fan of music, as I got past, being like, redheaded stepchild in a hardcore scene, then like we kind of like said, okay, we're going to do our own thing, but it's going to be a formula. So like we're not going to lose people each record. We're going to do our thing. It can go ahead and grow and it can expand and it can become other things, but we want it to hit this and throw whatever, whatever you wanted, whatever label you wanted to on it, whether that was a musical style or just, an imagery kind of thing, like, so we had a vibe for the band and we could continue to be that band and not try and change ourselves, like, the entire way through. Not that I thought that was bad, that Bloodlet just kept being what it wanted to be. But I definitely, like, after that wanted to, as a fan of music, not be that band next time around.
Yeah. Well, especially because like that was an experience, you're like, I experienced changing our sound each record. Yeah. Now, maybe if we sound similar with each record, that's a different thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just giving it like a thing. Like I kind of really liked also having, like later in having an artistic style, an art that goes with the music, that goes, a visual thing that goes with the music, and I think that like, if I take one of my other band, Hollow Leg, is just kind of, is fun. We have a lot of fun on stage. It's not, there's no pomp and circumstance. We just could get up there and do our thing and have a good time doing it. Like that is kind of, but it has its sound. It's like a, some sort of melodic caveman in a way, so that's kind of been our thing, like Junior Bruce was this heavy metal steamroller, and we named it that, so that as long as we kind of stayed in that lane, we felt good and felt like we were doing our thing and making good music, and then after it started to change, if it got too far out of the thing, we didn't feel like it was part of it. So we'd write 10 songs and keep 5, because it fit.
Yeah. I'll pull apart a little bit more about, your musical endeavors post Bloodlet, but Bloodlet is interesting just because, I mean, you guys obviously existed in the, infancy of the internet towards the end of the band, but like just trying to find simple information about like Bloodlet's existence is
Mhm.
not easy. Like like the breadcrumbs you guys left were very minimal. Like, you guys didn't do a ton of interviews. Like you weren't, seeing darlings where it's like, oh, you're causing a lot of drama. Like, you guys like stuck to yourselves and you did your
Right.
thing, and that was kind of it. Why? I mean, beyond just the, I guess, ethos of the band where you guys were, always the redheaded stepchild or whatever. Was that kind of like just a function of who you guys were, where it was like, we're not trying to create an air of mystery, but like we just are mysterious in a way?
I don't know. That's funny. I guess because like we shied away from too many interviews. I'm like, I find I've always had this imposter syndrome. I always think nobody wants to talk to us. Nobody gives a shit about what we're doing. What about what these guys are doing? Like we always felt a little, out of place in that way. But I think, I don't think we were kind of on the outskirts of everything. The cool bands on the label were not us, so if Bloodlet, so Victory in the 90s, it would have been, Hatebreed and Snapcase, the guys who got us on the label, basically. Snapcase, we'd play shows up in upstate New York and Syracuse and play with Snapcase and with um, Earth Crisis and the like, all those guys up there, and they liked us. They thought we were like, weird satanic,
Right.
metal dudes like from Florida with dreadlocks. They didn't know. So then, that's how we came into the scene in the first place, and then those guys kind of brought us in, and we ended up on Victory, and we were never, the cool guys on Victory. We were just kind of on Victory. We got really excited when Dead Guy got on Victory, and then we could go on tour with, Dead Guy. And that was something that felt more like our speed, to do something like that. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you guys definitely would have made more sense in a, sort of like rep, like that, weirdo noise stuff. Like, I mean, obviously if Relapse was as active in the aggressive music community, I mean, they were, but they were putting out more metal stuff. So it's like, I understand where you guys were always going to be. It was, it's like you and like Hi-Fi and the Roadburners or whatever. It's like,
Right.
here's
Yeah.
the weird
Yeah.
bands on the label.
Yeah. So, they, it's funny you say that, because at a later point, in the later 90s, Victory made a push to work with with Relapse to do like these joint tours and stuff like that. And so we ended up doing a lot of stuff after that with Relapse band. So we would tour with of course, with Neurosis. We would tour Today Is a Day all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
And then we would not tour with, maybe, but play a bunch of shows with, I Hate God, when we were in those areas, in and around there, or those kind of bands. And so we found our way into those type of bands, whatever you want to call that, sludge, I guess, or whatever label you want to throw on that type of music.
Right.
And kind of found our way over there, playing more in those scenes. And we were comfortable. And that was kind of like late 90s. And then, yeah, that was it.
Let's take a little break in the action to talk about our friends at, you know them, you love them, evilgreed.com. They're an amazing web store solution provider for bands and record labels that exist within the heavy music world. And first and foremost, before you go to their website, use the promo code HEAVY. It gets you 10% off your first order. And you listen to this show, so you get the type of stuff that they purvey in, that they sell you, whether it's bands like High on Fire or Knocked Loose or Speed or Fucked Up. You get it. And you will need to order the specific, whether it's limited edition vinyl, whether it's pre-orders. You should bookmark this, follow them on social media, and that way you get to know what they have going on. They ship worldwide from Berlin, Germany, but the shipping rates to us are very advantageous, and you should do that because, let's be honest, the holidays are right around the corner. So if you wanted to get something for a friend of yours that was into cool, heavy music, There's no better place to do that than evilgreed.com. So again, use the promo code HEAVY for 10% off your first order and consume evilgreed.com. So you mentioned, I was actually going to ask in regards to like the victory hookup. And so what I find interesting about the fact that, you guys did strike up those friendships with, Snapcase and Earth Crisis and stuff. And you were not like, you weren't straight edge warriors or, there was a lot of stuff that was sort of incongruent to like what those bands were, but they obviously loved you and they embraced you. Same thing as like, we connected over text on Chokehold and like, you guys obviously resonated with them. What would you say was like, drew you into, people like that? Was it simply obviously just the music side of things where people were like, yo, these guys are great. Like, I love them.
Yeah, well, I think the opportunities came from when we started as a band. We wanted to like do a couple things. We wanted to play. We were, high school kids. We wanted to play CBGBs, and we wanted to put out a 7-inch because that's what we did. And so we started to reach out to people to play, and we want to play New York. So we reach out to people in New York to try and get shows. And back then, you were sending demos in the mail and stuff like that. And, dressing up your envelope, with Sharpies and stickers and sending out your stuff, trying to get people to open it. And so eventually we met those, who was it? Whoever was booking shows up there got a hold of our demo, and I can't remember who it was. If it was Teddy Toll or like somebody way back in the day,
Sure.
got our demo, reached out to us and asked us to play a show, and we came up there, play a show. I think we had to get our bass player, his mom had to, write a note in case we got pulled over by the cops that he was allowed to be with us, like on tour.
Right.
And and we took our asses up there, drove straight up to Syracuse and played some giant festival. And we were definitely the oddball out, but we were friendly enough, met everybody, and they, we were weird enough, and somehow it worked out. So we just kept coming back there, and that's how we got our first record deal with somebody. It was up in New York, and it was small little, 7-inch. I can't remember, Smorgasbord.
Smorgasbord. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, the Smorgasbord. Right? Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So and then when they put that out, then that was it. We were just up there as many times as possible, and then start meeting everybody in between, and that's how that works, and then we were off and running and touring, and that's how we got into that scene, and then because we'd show up to all these shows and playing with Snapcase and stuff. I remember we played some church sometime in New Jersey, and we would mess with each other all the time, just totally start messing with each other, and we would do it in front of everybody. So we had some giant, dumb, stupid, like wrestling match in front of this church where like all of a sudden there was like 100 people around us, and we were like, just like, crab, like the figure four and the, Dusty Rhodes, like top rope, Jeremy's jumping off somebody's back and like hamming it up with and having a good time with these guys. And they'd come out and like, run out in their boxers with bags on their heads while we're playing and, kicking each other on stage. And we became friends like that and started messing with each other. And before, we actually got on the label and stuff like that. And I think that's probably had everything to do with it. I'm sure they were talking us up to Victory. I'm sure we weren't Victory's first choice.
No, it's just incredible and I think it speaks to the fact of what the scene was like at that particular time, where it was like, if you, became friends and like you liked each other and you liked each other's music, like you guys would ride or die and just be like, oh yeah, you guys are going to play, Buffalo. And you're like, exactly. Okay, well, I guess do you want to come to Florida? I don't know if you do, but if you do, we'll play some shows.
Exactly. Yep. That's how it goes. That's how it went. That's exactly how it went. There was no, you didn't even have a cell phone. You had like a dialer. You had to, hold up to a payphone and like, steal, act like you're putting quarters in so you could call your mama.
Right. So in the creation of Bloodlet, like, was your, were you guys ostensibly, here's me trying to place labels on you guys, were you like hardcore kids trying to do something different, or did you come from more the metal side of things where you're like, oh, I like this hardcore stuff too? What was your, I guess, supposed influence as you started?
So if I go back to the very, very beginning of Bloodlet, I met Matt Easley, the guitar player of Bloodlet. Him and I went to the same high school, and I needed a ride home after school, and this buddy of mine was like, "Hey man, ask that guy. He lives by your house." And I look over, there's this guy in a Guns N' Roses acid wash denim jacket with jeans that kind of match and like snakeskin boots with a mullet, like standing next to a 79 white 79 Firebird, right? And he's about as as Guns N' Roses as you could be. And I was wearing like probably my dad's combat boots and some ripped up pants, and I think I'm a t-shirt that I made in Votech of probably it was probably a exploited church t-shirt, or maybe a Bad Brains t-shirt that I'd made. And that's how I met Matthew. Matthew took me home, for a cigarette, and we became fast friends, and that's how that band started. So, we weren't like the same people. And I like, he was definitely coming from that. He listened to Death Angel, like, and that kind of metal, Dream Theater and stuff like that. And he, and him and I started talking about making a band, and I was a skater. I came from, like I started getting into my musical influences by, skate videos. So, probably came in around Black Flag and, yeah, what would that be? Agent Orange, like that whole Beach Boys style vibe. But then that was fine. But then once, once I heard, Black Flag in a Vision video, and I was like, okay, this is something. And then somebody showed me Bad Brains. And at that point in time, I was like, okay, now I'm hooked on this. So maybe from there, Minor Threat, and then over into moving to, and then growing up in Florida, there's the metal scene around you as well. At some point in Bloodlet's history, we spent years practicing below Death, like Death, practicing the same complex. So, we love them, so we could come from that. Tampa is a huge death metal. Every time we play down there, we play with metal bands as well. So that's kind of how that, all kind of came together. None of the guys were, I was probably the most hardcore kid, and that just came from being a skater and listening to punk and hardcore music,
Yeah. No, that's cool. And I love the product. I mean, especially that era, and I mean, still ostensibly now, like you're a product of your environment, but it's like when you have the lack of information that all of us had in the, early to mid 90s, like you didn't know that there was a band from another town that like sounded exactly like you or had the same name until you showed up and you're like, wait, what?
Wait,
you guys are into this? Yeah. You like this stuff too?
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Yeah. Like, what are you kidding? Yeah, like that was that. Like I said, like it was demos, mailing demos around. I remember I sent this. There was a band, Small World, kind of stuff. Like we practiced in these small warehouses here when Bloodlet first started, and there was a band that practiced three warehouses down, garage doors, in a band, and they were called Infamy. And I'm sure there's been 1,000 bands called Infamy, but this Infamy were this cool, like mathy, like but super heavy riffs, and then the vocals were super like just gnarly, and I loved this band, right? And I took this demo and I went to Virginia Beach. I gave it to my friend Lance, who was in this band called As It Stands. It was like hardcore band from Virginia way back in the day. And I left this tape. It was a shitty tape. And then fast forward like 8 to 10 years later, and somebody's like telling me a story in a parking lot in Virginia about this band that they heard one time from Florida. It called Infamy, and it was the sickest thing. And it was just, that all came from just a demo that I dropped at my buddy's house, when I stayed the night. It's just, it was cool back then. Everything was like a gem, when you found it, and everybody treasured it. Like, it was like a good secret that that you wanted to share with people that you cared about,
Yeah, no, it's beautiful like that. And so then after you guys started to, once you got that, offer to put out a 7-inch, which by the way, I also love the immediacy that so many of those, and I'll use big air quotes here, record deals, where it was like a person sees you at a show Like
Yeah.
they want to put out a record. They're like,
Yeah.
hey, Bloodlet, do you want to put out a 7-inch? You guys are like,
Yep.
sure.
Yep.
Like
Done.
it happened. Like no one questioned anything. You're like, so yeah, I guess we'll send you the DAT tape or whatever, and you'll press it.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
so anyways, once you guys started to, like experience more of, touring life and, going up and down the East Coast and stuff like that, you had, I mean, putting out 3 7-inches in a matter of like a year and a half, like that's a lot. Were you guys like writing a ton, and like the band was like your be all, your end all be all?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, back then we would practice three or 4 days a week, but we would practice all the time. But at the time we were in, uh, the warehouse that we practiced with, Below Death, we spent, I think 3 or 4 years there, and, no, yeah, probably 3 years there. And I mean, we were there 4 days a week. People would stay the night there and just stay in this place. And then if we weren't, writing, we were trying to play shows, constantly. We were just constantly playing as much as we could at that time. And, yeah, we just wrote all the time. We'd write a bunch and not release, half of it too. So
Okay, got
we
it.
wrote a lot. Yeah.
And so when you did get connected to Victory, like, do you remember how that, I mean, because obviously at that time too, that label was not only larger than life, but Tony is clearly, a character, and he's been immortalized in many different places, good, bad,
Sure.
everything in between. But how, did you guys, like, how did that happen? Was it a matter of just like, Tony calling you up and like, here's a record deal and like, sign this in 24 hours. Otherwise we're moving on. Like,
Or else. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
No, I actually, I'm hard pressed to remember how that actually all went down. There was a conversation because prior to that, because we were talking to a couple of labels after we did all our 7 inches, like you mentioned. We did talk to Victory. We also were prior to that talking to, come on, help me out.
yeah.
Overkill.
Oh,
Overkill. I'm trying to remember his name too. His name is at the tip of my tongue. I can't remember. But anyway, we were talking to Overkill to do it, and then ended up going and doing it with Victory. And I don't remember what the deciding factor was, other than maybe that might pay for recording or something like that.
sure.
Um, uh, but yeah, I don't know. I remember what was your question? Was there a question
No,
there somewhere?
there was no, totally fine. Yeah, just like no, the memories of like, when you guys actually like, signed, like, did you feel accomplished? Was it like a big deal for you guys, or was this just kind of like another thing that you were excited about, but you're like, all right, back to the warehouse?
Yeah, no, we were definitely, I mean, we were definitely excited. I guess we thought it was going to, give us some opportunities, and it did. They helped us, tremendously. I mean, tremendously. There was a deal made, so we were able to, keep our asses on the road, and supplied with merchandise, and records so we could sell them and continue to stay on the road. And we knew that when we signed it, and we were looking forward to being able to do that. And that was the goal. The goal was to be out on the road as much as possible, to be able to keep doing our thing. And signing with Victory, we thought as soon as we did that, we would be able to do that. We did. There was some good parts of that, and there were some bad parts to that as well.
Of
It
course.
helped us. It helped us get it to, from like, sometimes on the road we would run out of money, or break down, something like that. Not really run out of money, break down. The van would break, and then we would have to spend all our money to fix it. We would need help on the road. They would give that to us. They'd want it back, of course, but they would, give that money to us and allow us to do that. So I can't say much bad about Victory in that aspect. They were very, helpful that way.
Yeah.
Letting me
Yeah.
fit on the label, may have been another thing.
Right, right. Well, and truthfully, it was interesting because Victory, I mean, bands like you guys, Dead Guy, Guilt, like they had an artistic bent beyond just the sort of meat and potatoes hardcore that they were releasing, but it wasn't like they were releasing those at a large enough clip to make you feel like you were kind of a part of somking. It was just
Right.
like,
No, it was cool, man. Like, I mean, Iceburn, like they put Iceburn
that's
stuff
true.
out.
That's
Like,
true.
I,
Yep.
I got super excited about like the stuff that they were putting out. I think that like what happens when, companies get bigger, just like bands, when bands get bigger, you like they start turning and aiming it towards things that are going to make them the biggest windfall, that they know is going to, make us the biggest windfall. So they may not, we're not like when I say redheaded stepchild, of the label, we're not the the poster boys, of that band. What was that band that, Atreyu? Remember Atreyu came out with that? Like, I mean,
Of course.
every like when our records came out basically at the same time, and of course every full page ad was all about Atreyu because Atreyu took off. That's where their money went, and they pushed the Atreyu record. I'm not mad about that. That's what happens with business. But that's how that label grew. That's what that label grew into. When you and I first remembered it when it was little, it was a little more idealistic. Like I thought, I had a naive idea of how this was going to go, and I thought these people are going to be behind us 100%. And after a certain point, they need to focus on this thing because it's taken off.
Absolutely. So in those,
It's part
I
of
guess,
that though because they didn't focus on the other thing. The reason why that's taking off. So
yeah,
are we on the right label, which is eventually what you end up coming to,
totally. And in those, I guess, beginning of Victory years, like what bands were you guys, did you find kindred spirits in regards to, touring and a lot of, I mean, I know, like I said, I saw you with Vision of Disorder. Who were you guys finding yourself touring with or playing shows with the most during those years?
During the years, like you said, so we
The
did, you said 97, so 96 and 97, I think we did, Dead Guy. Uh, we did Neurosis, Today is a Day. Uh, um, then we did, Hatebreed and Entombed as well. That was
that must have
97.
been that must have been so weird. Like
That
that
was
that just
awesome.
yeah.
No,
I
that
mean,
was
great
awesome.
tour.
Yeah, it was a great tour, and honestly, like us and we had a blast with Hatebreed. We love those guys. Like we had we were great friends, and it's the same with Entombed. Like we had a party one time at Tony Brummel's house, and Lou, rest his soul, from Hatebreed. I can't remember I can't remember if he spills his drink right on Tony's like hi-fi. I can't remember what it was about, but it was some drunken nonsense. Like, but it was this crazy party where everybody was just pounding like beers. Like the Swedes and Hatebreed were like just having this drinking contest in the middle of Tony Brummel's house, and it was a sight to be seen for sure.
That's
Yeah, but yeah, but
I can't
those are the bands.
I
Those
can't
are the
imagine.
tours we were doing back then, huh?
I said I can't imagine that. Just that's such a weird picture to see. Entombed, Bloodlet, and Hatebreed having a drinking contest. It's incredible.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
those were good times. Yeah, for sure.
When you first started to because I mean Ethnogen, I mean I know you obviously had recording experience in the past. Did you feel like that was I guess your first professional recording experience, or would you refer to the 7 inches as kind of being like, oh no, that cut our teeth pretty well?
So, yeah, yes, and no. We recorded a couple of the 7 inches, or at least one of them, with the same guy that we recorded the Entheogen record with. His name was Mark Ignafo. He was from Chicago, and he used to record with he recorded at Al Jorgensen's studio up there, and he recorded some Smashing Pumpkins, some of their first like demos and stuff, and 7 inches. And then he moved down to Florida, and he was recording kind of all the local heavier bands around here. And we found our way to him on some of those 7 inches, and then we kind of felt we were there. That was where we were used to, and that was our first real studio. Otherwise, we were just walking into like someplace in a strip mall with $300, and here's
Sure.
half an hour, go sing your song, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, that was our first real studio experience, I would say. And then yeah, after that, we went to him like 2 or 3 more times.
Sure. And especially because, I mean, at that time too, like there weren't many bands that were for lack of a better term, making it, like, or applying business principles to what they were doing. It was just
Right.
survival on the road. Like, the only ethos was just staying out on the road, whatever that meant.
Sure.
How were you guys kind of handling, the business aspect? Like, were you, did you feel like you were handling it somewhat well, or was it just, a bunch of idiots running around the country?
It was a bunch of idiots running around the country. We definitely had some, we had envelopes, we definitely had folders. We tried to keep track of our money. We weren't good investors. We would constantly buying new gear and stuff on the road, and losing gear and having to replace it, and that kind of shit. We weren't good businessmen per se, but we were good at keeping track of our money so we could stay on the road. And that was pretty much the only goal, was to get out there, stay out there, get back home, make more stuff, get out there and play more stuff.
There's something that's special about businesses that support music, because truthfully, like, it's a lot of lip service that you see out there where it's like, oh, you have a, credit card company sponsoring a music festival, but you're like, what are you actually doing? And not to compare credit card companies to our friends at rockabilia.com, because they are worlds apart. Because rockabilia.com is the place where you can buy a bunch of officially licensed merch from hardcore bands, from punk bands, from mainstream rock artists, to classic rock, to everything. They have so much stuff, and they're offering a promo code and a discount for you if you use 100 words or less. That's the promo code. It's number 100, words or less. And you'll be able to shop to your heart's content. And like, I'm literally looking at this right now where I was like, you know what? I want to get my son, because he loves Paul McCartney, maybe some cool Paul McCartney stuff. And there is so much stuff there. And say you need to buy some stuff for the holidays. They ship it from the Midwest here in the United States of America, gets to you fast. And it's all officially licensed. That's important. There's none of this bootleg stuff that obviously doesn't get the band any money whatsoever. And it's all high quality stuff, great customer service. And like I said, ships from the Midwest, gets to you very fast. So go to rockabilia.com, use the promo code 100 words or less, 10% off your order, and have fun shopping. From a vocal perspective, you always had a very, interesting style in regards to, it was, hoarse screaming. Like, it was, it was one of those things where it was just kind of like an interesting, like, you sounded different than a lot of the other bands that existed.
Sure. That's I'm gonna try and take that as a compliment.
Yeah, because I think that's it. Truthfully, it really matched the music, where it was like, because the music was so, you use a, terrible adjective, but like, tortured. And it's like, your vocals sounded like you were also being like, yeah, I'm trapped in the depths of hell and I'm trying to get out of it. Like,
Yeah, no, that's
So,
that is a kind way of putting it. Yeah.
okay, yeah. So, how did you, I guess, kind of arrive in your final form? I mean, I know that, especially towards the end of Bloodlet, you started to incorporate singing, and there was more elements that you were including in there. But how did you, kind of develop that style in particular, or was that literally just kind of what came out, for lack of a better term?
Yeah. So I think everything about Blood, that we wanted it to kind of be gross. And so I definitely we wanted everything to be in the moment. We wanted it to kind of feel like, you know, an emotional response and to trauma, really. And so that's kind of where we tried to come from. So as far as my vocals, yes, I wanted to convey that, like, my ability to sing and my technique was fucking horrible. And I would, run into going on the road and like losing my voice. And it would happen often until I started to actually teach myself how to sing, or how to at least how to scream and, maintain my voice. And so, that took, a good many years. I remember one time we were on tour. I think it may have been with Entombed, and my voice was out and shot, and we were in Colorado, and we called Victory, and we were like, my voice is shot. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So they're like, look, there's this doctor in Denver, or in Aurora. You got to go to see this doctor in Aurora, and he's a voice doctor. He's famous. His name was Dr. Buzz. And I go, I go to this guy's house with a hoarse voice, and he's like, all right, well, you got your shot, and it's dry out here. You need to use this vaporizer. You need to use this, and I'm going to give you a shot of cortisone in your neck. And he shot me in the neck with cortisone. And the next day, I was able to my to do my whole set. And then when I got home from that, I was like, I don't want any more shots of whatever that is, cortisone in my neck. So I'm going to learn how to do this correctly. And then I started in the late '90s, starting to figure out how to actually use my voice correctly.
Okay. And I honestly, I appreciate that story, but it does sound like, especially for, the last record on, Victory, the Cypress Tree record, where it just sounded like you not only were more confident, but you had more control and like you knew what you were doing, as opposed to just the abuse you were giving yourself.
100%. It's like, it also comes from the way that Bloodlet would write a lot would be that we would spend a lot of time. We would write, we'd go on tour, we'd come home, we'd write, and then we'd go right into the studio. And like after a while, we kind of tried to not go directly in and tried to incorporate either songs into a live set or make sure that we were much more prepared to go in the studio. And we kind of go like, so we had more time to develop the songs. I also started to record myself a lot more because every time, I don't know how many other, people experience this, but when we go into the studio back in the day when we were younger, we had this wad of money. Here we got a grand to go in the studio, here's $600 for the drums, here's, $500 for the guitars. And then you got 45 minutes to go sing the whole record, and that's kind of how it would always go. And then, I just got more into, because of our relationship with Mark when we were recording, in Theogen, I expressed an interest in recording, and he started really feeding me like, mixed magazines and showing me what compression does and stuff like that. And then I started to record myself with 4 tracks and more prepare myself. I go to the rehearsal space and I record the stuff, take it home, and then record my vocals. And then I could actually finally hear my vocals, so that when I went in the studio, it wasn't the first time I heard my voice.
Right. Which, it's so insane that so many of us do that for so many years of just being like, oh, this is what I sound like.
This is how it's done. Yeah. No,
Totally.
dumbass. You can prepare. Yeah.
Right. So as you're experiencing the touring lifestyle and, band life and everything like that, how were your families and parents and, friends reacting to this stuff? I mean, because, Bloodlet, like, no matter, even if you just look at the album art, people are like, this looks scary. Like, what is Scott into, was your, I guess, community, they were clearly supportive enough. No one was like going to stop you because you guys were going to do what you're going to do. But, were they looking at you with a side eye?
Well, yeah. So, when we first started, Bloodlet, we were young. I wasn't living at home. My mother and I weren't really talking to each other at the time when we first started, and then spent some time away when I first started touring. And then I didn't talk to her for about a year and change. And then I saw this horrible fight in DC. It was at a Shelter show. We were playing with Shelter and somebody else, I can't remember, and these skinheads were there, and it was this awful, horrible, bloody fight that rolled out into the street. And I wanted my mommy bad, and ended up calling her from this show. And, that was probably like a year or so after. She did not support, she was mad. I quit school, to go and to tour. And she was definitely not supportive of that at first. And then, spent, a year not talking to me. And then when I called her, like, we were kind of close after that. Then after that, everything was fine. And she kind of saw that, we were able to support ourselves on the road. And she then, became a lot more supportive. And now, in retrospect, she's super proud. She loves it. She thinks it's great. She tells stories now.
I'm sure. When was the? Did she ever watch you guys play? A big show
Yeah.
in Florida or something?
Yeah, she has. Yeah, she was there. In fact, and it was funny because she came to a show, one of the last shows that Bloodlet played in the 90s, and it
Mhm.
was a local bar, and there was some kind of drama with our drummer's girlfriend, who my mom was there with, and some other girl at the show, and there was a fight. So my mom's holding like my drummer's girlfriend's wine, while there's a scuffle over here. But yeah, no, she's a champ, man. She's a trooper now. She loves it now. So yeah,
That that's incredible.
yeah,
Uh, uh, so I'm going to presume that like once the Seraphim Fall came out, I mean, you guys did more touring. You guys were pretty relentless, where you were at least across the U.S.
yes,
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you guys do international touring or
yeah,
no?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Funny, yeah. So yes, we did. So 1990. So that would have been 98. We went over there in 98 for the first time, and we were supposed to go over there with Hatebreed. So Hatebreed was supposed to meet us in Munich, and we landed in Munich, and Hatebreed, we got picked up by the booking agent, and Hatebreed didn't come, like, because like it was something about like Jamie wasn't flying back then and wouldn't fly or something, but they didn't come. So the tour was based on them playing certain shows, like these. It was us and them, So, and they were jumping on these festivals, and we were playing, with them on these festivals. So we ended up taking some of their decent spots on some of these festivals, which was great. But some of these shows just got shit canned. So we were like homeless in Berlin for like a little while. Um, Over there, the first time we went over there, we played some cool shows. Ended up jumping on a couple that we weren't supposed to be on. We played a show with H2O somewhere, and then that ended up being a great show. But we played some smaller places, and then played Eindhoven, the big festival over there, and that was great. We ended up we got out of our van there, and we were next to, for whatever reason, the Pantera bus, but we were in, a Sprinter bus, and we were wearing, I Hate God t-shirts and Soylent Green t-shirts, and it was, Dimebag Daryl and I think Rex that saw us there, and they were like, "What?" And come here. And so we ended up like hanging out with those cats like pretty much like all day and all night. And so like it was, there was some real big highlights like of that tour, but the tour basically, fell apart. We slept on, people's couches, and but had a blast, the whole time.
sure, that's incredible. So yeah, I guess like towards the end of Seraphim Fall, when you guys were, I guess being, less active. I mean, I know you did a decent amount of touring around Cypress Trees as well. What was the band, dissolving just a function of
Yeah.
like, we've kind of done as much as we can do, like we're kind of tired, like, or was there, I guess, more drama involved with like, okay, members don't like each other anymore, so we gotta, go our separate ways?
Yeah, no, it was definitely the latter. Like, you put somebody in a van, and tour all over the place. People, personalities, like sometimes, clash, and it's like you love this person like a brother, but you also start fighting like brothers. You know, there were that plus some people, there were personal issues going on at the time, so we kind of like went our separate ways. Charlie moved to Berlin, and I moved to Denver, and I lived out there. And then that was pretty. I spent I think a year, maybe two. I guess maybe I came back at the in 2000 back to Florida again to work on Bloodlet again, and that was yeah. But yes, we basically split because there was internal conflict, and we were just had to stop. Like, couldn't do it anymore. It wasn't really like people had, like more responsibilities, needed more time, and were more frustrated when they were out on the road. It felt like it was harder to do every time we did it. And then eventually, I think it was Charlie who was like, "That's it, I'm moving to Berlin." And I was like, "Well, fuck, I'll go, I'll go to Denver."
Right, right. And like you were talking about, I mean, you guys have been known to, imbibe and obviously party out there on the road. Like, do you contribute any of that to the dissolution, or do you guys, were you guys, I guess, as responsible as one could be,
Well,
indulging in those activities?
so yes, I would not call it responsible. Like,
Okay,
no, there was definitely substance abuse that was contributing to that band's downfall. Um, it contributed to our internal frustrations, to say the least. That would be how it kind of went.
sure.
And then there were we had to cancel tours. We were supposed to go out with Malevolent Creation, and our guitar player got arrested. So, that put the kibosh on that. And that was substance related. So, then that, sets people, there's frustrations involved. We're taking off work. Everybody's, had all their ducks in a row. You got to keep your shit together, and, if you can't play a show, you're not really a band.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And with that, like I mean, Hope and Suicide started relatively quickly after. I mean, not quickly, but like, that EP came out 2004-ish, 5-ish, if I remember correctly.
Oh wow, that would have been, yeah. So that band actually got together when I came back to Florida from Denver. I had a job. I got a job at like Airborne Express, like delivering packages in those
Okay.
shorts that everybody wears now, like like the short shorts. But then I was delivering these packages around. I delivered a package to a studio, and I walked in the place. I was like, "Oh, cool! This is a studio," and delivered this package. And there was a guy working at the studio who was their drummer for Hope and Suicide, and somehow recognized me. And then the next time I was in there, he asked me if I wanted to come out and jam, and that was the end of that. And that's how I met Tommy, who's now in Bloodlet and every other project I'm pretty much in. So it was a fast friends kind of situation, and joined up with these guys pretty much immediately and started playing with them even before Bloodlet was really starting to reform again. Before we did 3 Human Nights.
Okay. Got it. So, that's right. Cause I appreciate you laying out the timeline because I guess technically after the end of Seraphim, like you guys, I guess were broken up for like a year and a half or so. And then you came back
Yep.
with, okay,
Yep.
got it.
Yeah.
Uh, um, with your, experience within so many different, independent music scenes from, metal and hardcore and kind of everything in between. Um, when you've been able to, kind of reflect on like where Bloodlet sat, um, who would you say that I guess you guys felt more at home with? Was it more on like the metal side of things, or maybe just from like a crowd perspective? Where did you feel like you went over the best, so to speak?
Oh, hmm. That's interesting. There's different reactions from different crowds. Like a Neurosis show, and the crowd that would be there that we'd be playing with in front of them isn't the same as the crowd we're playing with at Lost Horizons, hardcore matinee on a Sunday afternoon. Like there's a different energy at both of those places, and um, we could go over well and we just not get the same kind of reaction, in either venue. So I think if I were to choose, like if I can't choose, I think
Yep.
people liked us. Like I hear people tell me that they really liked, Entheogen, like a lot of like, hardcore kids would tell me, like Entheogen was the shit, that's the shit. And then, these crusty kids, telling me that, the Seraphim Fall that's the shit. And did you write that to Fantasia? Because I'm pretty sure you did. Like you got those kids, and then that like so, and then now I like some other like friend. There's friends of ours now. The Third House, the guy who runs our label that Hololeg is working with right now, was telling me that he thinks Three Humid is like his jam, like, and these are three different types of, people. This is, three different, but I mean, now that's a 30-year long time span. So, it's, oh
Yeah.
God, that's crazy. I'm old.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily matter. You're just like, if we're picking up people from all these different scenes and they just like heavy music, you're like, this is fine. If you
Yeah.
like one of our records, that's a win.
Right. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. If you like any of this shit, just come hang out, buy a t-shirt.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot in regards to just kind of the more odd tour pairings that you most likely had. Not from like, oh, like we hated to be on tour with this band because they sucked or whatever, but like sonically, where it's just like, I mean, I remember you guys did a relatively extensive tour with As Friends Rust, I want to say.
Sure.
And so like that just to me, I mean, yes, you're both from Florida and obviously like you guys know each other, but like that's also, you don't make sense together.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, no.
Yeah. So,
That's funny.
what, yeah. What are some tours that stick out in your mind that were like that? And it didn't need to like be good or bad, but just be like, yeah, on paper, this probably shouldn't make sense, but it maybe did.
Yeah, well, like we did Today Is a Day in Bongzilla, and like, but that to me makes perfect sense, and then, we said as Friends Rust. I didn't know if I didn't even know if we would do well with the Vision of Disorder tour, but we did great there. And to be 100% honest with you, I never thought about like how it was going to go over. I just always wanted to know if we were going to be friends with the band. That was my only concern. Were we going to get along with this band that we're going on tour with? Because everything else just, you play good or you don't, the reaction is going to be what it is going to be. As long as you rock out, that's all you can do. I wasn't too concerned about that. I just wanted to have a good time with the people we were on the road with. And As Friends Rust, that was a great tour. That was a great tour. Yeah.
That's cool. You and a few others were pioneers in regards to the white guys with dreads, like you, Kyle Bishop from Grade, like that that was distinct. That was a very distinct look for that particular time, and obviously a lot of other people didn't really necessarily have that in hardcore at the time. Did a lot of people, I guess not comment or like make fun of you, but like did you receive I guess feedback on your hairstyle?
No, I suppose I did, like, but they would just be from randos. It wouldn't be,
Sure.
it wasn't like it wasn't a normal thing. I remember, I remember meeting Brian Fair, like, and we both had like, these dreadlocks immediately, buddies, smoking Cholum in the back, like of the venue. But yeah, there wasn't a bunch. And then all of a sudden then that was a thing. Then it was everywhere.
Yeah. No, don't. I mean, I'd be remiss if we did not mention Brian Fair, because obviously he's the OG of OGs and still has them. And
He's stepping on those things still. Yeah,
that is exactly right. Stepping on them.
Man, I used to have to throw them over the headboard of the bed to sleep, because otherwise they would just get so tangled. And every time I'd cut them, I'd go to throw your head back and almost fall over, like, but every 10 years or so, I'd cut them off. And honestly, I probably still have them, because hair is just kind of annoying. Like, having to do things with your hair is like frustrating. But, anymore, I'd probably have a skullet. My hair is starting to thin out. So I'd probably just have like this, my part started to like, just, just grow. Like, I started to get wider and wider. So I just had to let it go.
Right. Yeah. How weird did it feel when you didn't have those anymore? Like, was it a pretty big adjustment process, or was it pretty easy?
Hat, you're done. No worries.
Easy. Yeah.
Easy.
You've continued to be, active in music and have more to, express and say with, I mean, Hope and Suicide for one, and then obviously Hollow Leg that you're currently in. What keeps you, I guess, connected and creating? Because, at a certain point, a lot of people age out of this and they just, they either don't care or they're too busy or whatever. But you've been pretty consistent about your output. So well, yeah, what keeps you connected?
I don't know. It's a compulsion. I don't think I can stop. I don't think I have a choice. I can't even imagine it. I'm not doing it. So I'm just going to keep going. I still in multiple projects, always trying to keep it going. When I couldn't, when Bloodlet wasn't my, full-time vehicle, and I started to went down from practicing 3 or 4 nights a week to only practicing 1 night a week. I, um, you know, I get worried about having too much time on my hands and being too idle. So I've got to be able to express myself and do the thing. So I'd find more projects to do. And that's how, I started doing 2 things at once or more than one band at a time. As long as I could keep moving, forward and making more music, man, I don't think I'll stop. I don't know I don't know about inspiration. I'm inspired by whatever, but I just can't stop doing it. That's all.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're like, this is just me. You can't.
This is just what I do. I took it. I don't know. I don't know what else to do.
Right. Right. Uh, I have to ask about your experiences recording with Steve Albini, just because, I mean, obviously a legend in the music scene. And yes, he worked with aggressive bands, but and obviously worked with Neurosis and many others, but, and understood probably what you guys were trying to do. But, was there any kind of I guess, nervousness in approaching, recording with him?
Oh, for sure, man. But just such excitement. Like the way that ended up happening was strange because, my buddy Scott White, we were talking about recording, and he had recorded with Steve Albini we were looking for somebody to do our record. And I reached out and he told me that it was super, it ended up being affordable and he had such an awesome experience doing it. So I was ultra excited that it could possibly be a possibility. And when we reached out, it ended up being affordable. And my mind was already blown, just to be able to work with that guy and then to knock on the door and have him answer it. Yeah, that was like a life-changing experience, that recording experience. And the things that I learned from that I still think about today, it was the venue, the place is just so amazing. If you ever get a chance to see anything about it, if you've seen his studio, we recorded in Studio B, which is the deep one, the octagon shaped or hexagon shaped one, the concrete floors, and it was awesome. They would record all day, and he would bounce down the tapes and give them to me, and I would sit with my 4-track in the room at night, in that big room at night, and sing and do my demos of what I was planning on doing. And then we would sit the next day and listen to those things and record. It was by far my greatest recording experience ever. I loved recording with Steve.
That's very cool. How long did you guys spend in the studio?
We spent 10 days in his place. Yeah. And we stayed in there. He had bunks. They were little tiny rooms with beds on either side. So bands can stay there. And, yeah, we slept there and worked all day, and into the night. And then like I said, I'd go down and work on vocal demos downstairs, at night. And, we just sat there and knocked it out. It was, great. It was a great experience. It was an eye-opening experience too. Cause at one point Steve asked, he was asking about my lyrics, and I remember he wanted to read some of my lyrics that I gave him. And I can't remember the lyric in particular, but he had a point to something that I was saying in my lyric. And I wish I could remember the line, but I can't right off the top of my head. But he had said that it was very narrow-minded, the way that I was, what I was saying in this thing, because I was assuming that this person that I was addressing had this viewpoint that I had, and it wasn't anything it was not anything specific. It was just, he thought that what he was reading, because he wanted me to, for just position while I'm singing these vocals, he had an opinion about this thing, and he told this to me. And I took that away, and I remember being just stunned that like Steve Albini told me that I was too
Sure.
full of myself, like here, and I needed to kind of take it easy or step back from this and think about this from a different perspective. And that changed how I was approaching like that record right then and right there. And, yeah, and made me think. So it was great to like have someone like put me in my place that was such a badass as like Steve Albini tell me I'm not doing it right. And then to be able to be like, oh shit, you're right.
Totally. Yeah. You're like, I respect what you're saying, sir. And I agree.
Yeah. Oh shit. You're right. Yeah.
That's incredible. The last thing I want to hit on was the fact, like you said, you are in, so many projects, and like the shifting that you probably have to do from a creative perspective, lending yourself to like, okay, this is what, I'm going to focus on the Bloodlet stuff now versus the Hollow Leg stuff now. Do you find yourself, I guess, yes, of course, you're treating these projects differently, but do you feel like you have to get in different creative spaces for each of them?
Oh, yes. Yeah, yes, for sure. What's good? What the differences between the two are headspace completely, really. And especially if we're talking lyrics, I definitely have to be in a different space for Bloodlet than Hollow Leg. Hollow Leg often writes in like epic like themes, and like a lot of Hollow Leg records have like a spirit animal and an element, like whereas Bloodlet's always been that kind of like visceral, like emotional response, and so that's two totally different headspaces. One is like writing a fantasy novel, and then the other one is digging deep, and like kind of trying to stir emotions, whereas the other one's kind of
Sure.
riding a tiger,
Right. Yeah. I'm going to get on my steed. Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Did you, I realized I said that was my last question, but this will be my last question. Because of the, imagery and, what you guys looked like in regards to, especially, the most active years of Bloodlet, were people scared of you? Like, did people come with preconceived notions of like, dude, those guys in Bloodlet are weird as hell. Like, they play pranks on us. Like, they got dreads. Like, did any of that lore precede you guys before you met people?
I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy, but like, yeah, I don't know. I doubt it. We were like, 150 pounds soaking wet, with like our gigantic Jinko jeans, like that could barely be held up, like they were like 36s. We wore 30-inch pants, waist. It was no, we were just silly little kids. I don't think anybody was intimidated. Or if they were probably just littler kids. And yeah. And once they met us, they probably weren't, we were just silly stoners. So.
Oh man, what a fun conversation. Hopefully you enjoyed some of the Bloodlet lore, as well as, just fun stories about Victory Records and weird Florida metalcore adjacent stuff. So thank you very much, Scott, for coming to hang out. I really genuinely appreciate it, and I hope you, as the listener, do as well. Next week is another person who I'd been tracking down for quite some time. We communicated many years ago on Facebook when I still existed on that platform. I mean, I do, but I don't use it. Dan Gump from Excessive Force, the vocalist of Excessive Force, and also the proprietor and owner of Life Sentence Records. And all of those words are so meaningful to me because not only was his band very important to me from a young, straight-edge human being, just finding that sort of aggressive nature beyond just the earth crises of the world. It was so cool. And his record label also was just hit after hit, in my opinion. So that's what we got next week. And Excessive Force is doing reunion show next year in Florida, which I am most likely going to be going out to, which I'm thrilled at. So anyways, Dan Gump from Life Sentence Records and Excessive Force is next week. And until then, please be safe, everybody.